Hey there, thank you for joining us. I'm Henry Overton, President and one of the founders of Turnkey Solutions, and I'm very glad that you've joined us for this important presentation about backups, offsite backups, and their place in your overall cybersecurity stack. As we go through today's content, I want you to think, how does this apply to me personally? How does this apply to my loved ones? And how does this apply to my business? Because the information we're going to share really can change your response time, your ability to restore, your ability to come back from cyber attacks, failed hard drives, fires, floods, hurricanes, every manner of disaster, and just a bad day can be a whole lot better when that backup that you've been planning on or hoping for works. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation and we'll get rolling. Today's subject, like we mentioned here, is offsite backups and how they're really a silver bullet against hackers, hurricanes, and disasters of every kind. But it's important to note that your offsite backups are only as good as you follow the following steps and recommendations. Now, one of the most important things to understand is that offsite backups are an important part. We joke about it. They're an important part of your healthy, nutritious cybersecurity plan. They are not the full thing. They're not the only thing. Just like that firewall isn't the only thing that you've got to do. In this, picture from the old TV commercial of the healthy, nutritious, balanced breakfast, what would it be without the orange juice, or without the toast, or without the Lucky Charms? So we've got to have it all together and have all of the important pieces to make it really a healthy, nutritious, fully balanced cybersecurity plan. So offsite backups aren't just a good plan from our perspective. Yes, we've been doing this for 25 years now, and we've seen companies come back from every imaginable possible disaster and really face a whole lot of bad days. And when the backups are done well, it gets them out of hot water. When it's not, it becomes a further source of irritation. And oftentimes it doesn't help them get their business back up and running. That said, backups and doing them well are a major requirement of almost all of the cybersecurity frameworks, including HIPAA, FTC, NIST, CMMC, CIS, and a whole slew of others. Turnkey, personally, as a company, we recommend our clients at least start with and understand the CIS frameworks. They've got some very specific controls and very specific steps to walk through, and offsite backups and disaster planning and all the things we're going to talk about here are important components of the CIS framework. Now, they're not everything, though. So let's back up just a split second and look at what Turnkey recommends as your whole healthy, balanced cybersecurity overall approach. From risk assessments to having a great cybersecurity insurance plan and all the other steps in front of you, there are many things that you have to do as an organization and as a person to make sure that you're taking care of the full picture of your cybersecurity framework. Today, we're just going to talk about backups and incident response planning and the things that go along with that. To put it another way, the full stack of cybersecurity protections that we really believe are important form a complete circle of protection around your business. Backup and incident response planning are an important component of that, but they are just one aspect of an overall healthy plan. Now, that said, without further ado, let's dig into it. And what I really want to speak to first is your personal computers at home. How are you taking care of your own backups? Before we fix your office and take care of what we're doing at work, what are we doing at home to protect your backups, to protect your data, and why is that important? Well, first off, what do you have on your personal computers or your cell phones or the devices at home that store your data? You've got tax returns. You've got priceless pictures of weddings and babies and your family from generations ago. You've got tons of stuff. And when we leave all that data just on the hard drive of your laptop or a desktop, we're leaving them in a very precarious, scary place. Those hard drives and thumb drives fail way more than what we think they do or what we would expect. The average predictable lifespan of both a spinning hard drive, and that's kind of the older hard drive technology, and today's modern solid state disks or basically chip-based hard drives, the average lifespan of those is like 3 to 5 years. So it's really important to note that if you're putting all your data on those and that's the only place you're saving them, you're putting all your eggs in a basket that we know will fail pretty soon. And we have seen this happen so many times, and it's always sad. It's always stressful. And yes, we can recover the files sometimes, but it's not always perfect. Matter of fact, it's usually not perfect. We usually miss some files because they just can't be recovered. And oftentimes it's a complete loss. So please think about backing up your personal computers and your personal files. Now, what are the ways and how can we do it is an important thing, but I want to stop for just one more pause here and to let you know that what we're seeing happen in the real world is that not only do your hard drives fail and people's homes have fires and floods and all these things that can destroy your files, but hackers love that home computer because you form a part of a massive network of computers. When they take over your computer, they can use you as a piece of a huge army of computers to attack. Yes, they can attack their bigger targets, but we see it happen all the time where they'll encrypt the hard drives of a home user and ask for a ransom there. And it's always thousands of dollars or more these days, it seems like. So it's terribly important to understand that there are a lot of threats against your home personal files, and a good backup is a great solution for that. Now, so that said, it's really important to stop for a moment and consider, how do we back up those home computers really, really well? The first and most important thing that I would suggest you should do is pick what you want to back up. All of the backup plans out there are different, and all the different software packages have different options. So we got to start with understanding, what are we trying to protect? If you want to back up the full computer, like the hard drive and Windows and all of your programs, and be able to restore your computer as it was yesterday if the hard drive fails and complete, then there's plans for that. There's companies like Backblaze and CrashPlan and Carbonite. I highlighted Carbonite because we use that here at Turnkey for some home computers in a couple different places. And there's other good ones that I've put on the screen here. There's a lot of home full computer backup plans that do a great job of making it simple and getting it done. If you want to just get all your files and put those into the cloud, there's things like Dropbox or Google Drive. There's a ton of different programs out there that can grab just the files, maybe not the whole computer and all of like Windows and all that. Now, if you want to back up specific things like specific file types like pictures or videos, then often we see people using iCloud or Google or Amazon Photos. There's a whole lot of solutions out there that are specific to a certain file type. And coincidentally, if you have iCloud for your iPhone or Google Drive for your Google phone, your Android phone, or if you have an Amazon Prime account, you probably already have cloud storage that maybe you could use to start protecting your pictures or your videos. Now, step 2 is to protect your backup. This is incredibly important. If we back up everything, but we don't protect it with a good password, with multi-factor authentication, the hackers are often going to look at that and find a way into your backup, destroy that first, and then launch their attack. So it's really important to protect your backup, just like you would protect your bank vault or your checking account with all these other precautions. We got to do that with your backups. Third thing that I would caution you to do is inspect that backup. Make sure that it's working. Go test it. Go look and see if you can find that picture of your grandmother that you took 10 years ago. Go check the logs to make sure that it's running. Make sure that the jobs are happening on a regular basis and that your current files are being backed up there, that you've paid for that account. Test it, double check it, make sure that it's working. So that's all for home backups. Let's carry over to the business side of it and think through, why is it so important that we not just back up your files and your computers and your servers at work, but that we get them off site. First off, a lot of the big compliance mandates like HIPAA, FTC, we talked about it a little bit ago. Those compliance mandates require that you're doing some sort of backup, and they look towards, they're starting to ask or recommend that we're not only backing it up on site, but that we're sending it off site in a completely specialized way that we'll talk about in just a second. Insurance policies for your cybersecurity insurance policy, or even your general liability or your general coverage insurance policies are starting to require this. Some of those policy types have been requiring it for many, many years. So it's important to note that you may be required to do it by your insurance policy. Then there's the hard reality that, again, those on-site backups burn, flood, they get stolen, they are reliant on storage media like tapes or hard drives that fail. Just this week, we worked with a client who had been backing up for years and years and years, or so they thought, to an on-site hard drive, and that hard drive had died 2 years ago, and nobody ever checked it. And for 2 years, they ran without a backup ever, because they thought that the backup was working and it was going to a failed local hard drive. And then the fourth reason why we really believe this is so important is that offsite backups are a huge protection against that cybersecurity attack where a hacker gets in and takes over a server, because on-site backups, that local hard drive backup or a tape backup or sending it to a network attached storage or whatever you're doing that fits inside the network, that's one of the top targets that hackers are going to look at, going to that backup, compromising the backup, stopping the backup job. If they can find some way to get into your backup and destroy it first before they let you know that they've taken over your servers, then you've got no way to recover if that's your only backup. According to the IBM cost of a data breach report from just this year, 2023, the average time it takes for a company to detect that they've been attacked and successfully breached by a hacker and contain it is 277 days. That's 9 months. 9 months that the hacker can spend time in your environment, moving around. And if they can, while they're spending time moving around your office network, if they can find your on-site backup, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to destroy the backup. They're going to compromise it. They're going to maybe make it back up less and less things to where at some point or another, it's only backing up a single text file. So your backup jobs will keep looking like they're working, but you've not really been backing up anything, or they'll completely compromise that or destroy the backups, or just any number of things that we've seen them do to really make a big mess there. So, let's highlight, before we go to how to do it really right, let's highlight a couple things that we've seen people do really, really wrong. First off, we mentioned an example a minute ago: set it up and never check on it or do a test restore. This is a great way to do your office backups really poorly. Set it up and never check on it. And again, what we find is that most of the time backups work great for a while, and then they're going to fail for some reason, one of 100 reasons. Usually it's an easy fix, but if you're not checking, you'll go a long time without backups actually happening. Second way that you can do backups really poorly is don't know where your data lives on a normal day-to-day basis. We find companies all the time say, okay, let's back up this server or this folder on the server, and that's great, and let's move on. And then they completely forget that maybe this one hard drive on this one computer over here, or maybe this other folder has some new projects or some really important files, or maybe this one system over here that's even in the cloud, it's got data that is incredibly important to the overall success of the business, but they're not backing it up. So you got to really stop and know where your data is, how it's being used, what applications use it, before you can properly inform and configure that backup job. Third way that we find companies really mess up their backups is don't retain old images long enough. There's a cost to storage, yes, and hard drives or tapes or cloud storage costs money. But if you had to restore a file or a system from 9 months ago, let's say you find out that your accounting data got weird 8-9 months ago, and you wanted to restore last year's general ledger, or if you needed to restore some client files because of a lawsuit from a year ago, and you couldn't do that because you wanted to save some money on backup storage, you're going to find yourself in a real pickle. So really know what your requirements are for retention. Think through the disasters there, and make sure that we're retaining old enough storage. And, the last bit is kind of all of this put together and so much more. One of the things that businesses do really, really wrong is just not spend enough time to understand their backup and disaster recovery options. So slow it down, ask, and think through, my business needs are this, or this is something that might happen to a company, and what options are there? Stop and ask your IT company. If we're your IT company, stop and ask us, hey, how could we restore from this scenario? Or how does this backup work? Or what could we do in this or that kind of environment? Slow it down and think through the options and get those answers, because there are so many different ways that we can do backups. It's important to explore those. And this changes on a day-to-day basis. New technologies, new solutions come to market all the time. And maybe we can meet your business goals better or cheaper today than we were able to a few years ago. So know your options, please. Now, how to do it right, and this is a pretty simple example here, or how we do it here at Turnkey Solutions, and we certainly recommend this for the vast majority of companies, and because it's a phenomenally powerful solution. It's scalable and it works really good if you've got one server or 100, if you've got complicated applications or pretty simple ones. But first and foremost, we spend a lot of time slowing down with customers and trying to ask, where is your data? Where are your things? What's important about this data? Where are you saving stuff? So we make sure and back that up. From there, we like to back up the full system, the entire operating system, all the disks in it, and we'd like to do that multiple times a day. And where we typically will recommend that we'll do that is to a local spare box. We call it a backup and disaster recovery appliance, or a BDR. But it's basically a spare server that can not only store those images, but also recover your system and spin up and become that server if, in this example, that big tower server fails. So that's got you in a really good scenario where we're backing up the full system multiple times a day, and then we're monitoring it. So there's a human being. We watch these backups like a hawk. It's one of the top 3 things that we look at on a daily basis, and we obsess about it. And it's really important to do that, because we manage a lot of backups, and there's always one, or some days more than one, that's not worked properly for some reason. And if we catch it the same day, we can fix a problem before it becomes a real problem. So it's important to do those steps, and that's what we think every company should have. Next up, though, we don't just stop there, because that's all inside your environment, inside your office. Those backups are replicated across the internet to a data center that's in a completely different state. We've got a whole lot of options. We like to use United States-based data center locations, but we typically will send the backup to somewhere across the country from the client. We look for somewhere that's geographically very different, so that the backups won't be affected by maybe the same storm or whatever issue is happening. And it's sent to a location that's completely isolated from your network. That backup happens, and it happens multiple times a day. And when the backup is complete, it's disconnected from your network, so that if a hacker got into your office, they couldn't cross the VPN or get across some kind of connection over to the data center and destroy your backups that are there. And again, it's tested every night on those spare servers. We've got a massive farm of those recovery appliances in the data center, and we test those. Now, in the scenario where we need that backup, here's what happens. If your server fails or something happens there in your office or your town or your state, and that server is no longer available, we turn your system on in the data center, a virtual copy of it from the last night's backup or this morning's backup. And then your staff is able to hop on and work, and they can connect up to that server the same as if they were connecting to your office there. We've had a lot of hurricanes in Louisiana, and a lot of scenarios where the whole office is taken down. There's a little change where they maybe have to connect to a different IP address, or they connect a little differently. But the beautiful part about it is that they're not completely interrupted. We may have lost an hour or two of data, but not the whole day, or not weeks or months, and we're not spending time trying to rebuild the whole server. We just get you back up and running. So that's how the offsite backup really can work, and how it really should in our model and our mind work. And there's a whole lot of nuances, and every business has a little minor tweak to how they want to get it done. And there's a lot of scenarios that we didn't cover here, but that's the basics of it. Going back to a little encouragement about why we think this is important and why it's really critical that you engage around this. That IBM report from 2023 that shows the cost of a data breach, they gave some really powerful stats around the things, and there's a big long table of the different precautions and things that you can put into place that will affect the average cost of a big gross data breach in your environment. The number 3 thing that really reduces the cost, and they gave some specific numbers against their average cost of a breach, but the number 3 thing that reduces the cost, and not by much, if you look at that, it's really neck and neck with the number 1 and number 2. But the number 3 thing is having an incident response plan and testing it. And that incident response plan includes offsite backups and testing it and monitoring it and knowing how your business is going to recover. So we cannot encourage this enough. It is so imperative that you write that incident response plan, and that you test it. And that a key part of that plan includes getting your data across the country, somewhere off-site, somewhere where it is ready for you when you need it, and it's separate and secure from the hackers. So wrapping up, concluding this, and kind of putting a pin on it, the first thing that we recommend that you do to make the most of your offsite backup, or to make the most of backup, is start with a good inventory of your data, your applications, what you need, how you use it, and really understand where that data lives and where your applications live. 2, pick the right platform and test and monitor it. write your plan, write out the incident response plan. That's something that takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of work. We're here to help. We've got some really great resources that can make that simpler for you. But it's got to include things along the lines of, yeah, what if we have a fire? What if the server dies? But also, what if we find out that a hacker was in the system, and active and first exploited this 9 months ago? So all those scenarios have to get fed into and considered in a really good incident response plan to make sure that you're prepared, and then make sure that you're making the most of your backup system. And of course, what happens if our server gets hit by a hurricane is kind of the top one that our clients ask, but all those other scenarios have to be a part of a good incident response plan. So backup essentials: know where your data is, know the mandates and the things that you have to do, pick your platform carefully, monitor and test those backups, consider all of your risks when you're putting together your plan, and then create that plan and make it happen. How do we get started? The first step is to do a risk assessment. When we're conducting a risk assessment for you, we're going to start with knowing where your assets are, like your computers and your applications, but also where is your data. That is core to any good, complete risk assessment. We can help with that, but it all starts with a risk assessment. If you're a current customer, we would love to hear from you. Ask us to think through these things for you, and we'll walk through this whole process with you. And if you're not, of course, we would love to be of service to you. We've got some phenomenal resources up on the website that dig into this more. We've got plans and simple guides. There's one right there for backing up your data and an overview of some important key considerations, digging more into all of these concepts that we talked today. We've got webinars where we detail things comparable to this as we build out that full awareness of the cybersecurity stack, like things about multi-factor authentication and short little videos about a ton of different things. And if you're an infographic person, we've got them for almost any kind of IT or cybersecurity subject. So short version is we are here to help, if it's via webinars, resource guides, infographics, our monthly newsletter. Let us know if you'd like to get subscribed to that. And that's all that we've got for today. We hope it was really helpful. If you've got questions about this, please reach out either here today on this session, or reach out to us by emailing us or calling us at turnkeysol.com. You can find a ton of those resources, and you can chat with us or call us at 225-751-4444. We thank you for your time. We thank you for the opportunity to be helpful, and we hope you have a great day. We'll talk with you soon.